My name's Bill Wallach. I've been an ecologist now for just over 10 years. I work as part of a team that supports a broad range of renewable energy projects across the country. We're currently out on location for NEON, completing some biodiversity assessments as part of a potential wind and solar project. With this sort of project, our job as ecologists is to determine and assess the local plant and animals, and then work with the team designing the project to assist them to avoid and minimise impacts on these species. Renewable sites are often bigger and more complex than something like urban development. They often involve multiple landholders across large areas, but also have a highly detailed project design. Consultation with landholders on projects like this are one of the most important aspects of the project. We often have to make multiple site visits across seasons to truly understand the variability across the year. So we have to be sensitive to the other considerations, things like avoiding livestock during lambing season, sowing crops, or even just navigating around particular wet paddocks in the wetter months. The process of a biodiversity survey is often long, and for wind and solar sites, the level of planning is enormous. We start with desktop research, drawing on our existing information from records or government databases to determine the potential biodiversity values and constraints of a project. We start really wide, assessing the entire footprint of the project, but also nearby habitats in other areas of the landholder's properties. Then we narrow the focus down into specific areas and end up with a really refined boundary to work with and detailed surveys within that. Then finally, we number and data crunch all this information to produce a final report that then goes out to public exhibition and regulatory review. From start to finish, it's quite a long process and a thorough one. So back in the day, you'd catch us with pen and paper in hand to record what we're finding out in the surveys. But these days, things have evolved, and now all our fieldwork tools are largely digital, which gives us real-time information and more accurate data. No two surveys are the same. Depending on the species we're assessing, the site location, and other intricacies involved, we might be observing bird life, their behaviours, playing bird calls for their responses, walking detailed vegetation transects, or setting up remote cameras to capture movement, all in the rain, hail or sunshine, and sometimes in pretty remote parts of Australia. It's the nicest part of our job, but it can also be pretty challenging at times. A lot of the animal species we survey for are nocturnal as well, so we work through the night to identify species like koalas, owls, and bats. In order to do this, we have tools like bat call recorders, remote survey cameras, speakers, and spotlights to help us with all of those. But there's also smaller species like orchids, lizards, geckos, and even threatened moths and snails in some cases. We put a lot of focus and effort into our work, and it ultimately shapes the design and construction of these projects. We strive towards getting good outcomes for the client and the project, but also the world around us. It's rewarding to look back on some of these projects at the end and know where we have helped the design team avoid or minimise the impact on something significant. It's even more rewarding to be working with one of Australia's leading renewable energy developers who own and operate their projects over the long term and supporting Australia's transition to a sustainable future.